Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Auditor General report reveals millions in payout to companies and individuals connected to board members of Nutrition Products Limited. A number of protests against mandatory vaccination. And later in sports, Marlon Samuels charged under that. I'm Anthony Lugg. Here are the details. We begin with a developing story. Several persons have been arrested, including President of the United Independence Congress, UIC, Joseph Patterson, by the police during an anti-COVID-19 vaccination protest in downtown Kingston. The political party has staged demonstrations across the country in recent weeks. It has vowed to press the government on vaccination. On Monday, the police warned the public against undertaking street marches without a permit. However, in a social media video on Facebook last night, the president said the march would go ahead as planned, as it was his constitutional right. According to the Disaster Risk Management Act, the group limit is currently 10, and as such, a march would be in contravention of that act. To other news now, a former member of the Wandan gang turned state witness has identified Andre Blackman Bryan as the leader of the gang. The trial is now underway in the Home Circuit Court. He started giving evidence at 10:27 a.m. The first witness, who will remain anonymous, told the court that he was also the banker. The witness told the court that he collected $80,000 to $100,000 per day, except on Sundays. He also told the court that a friend introduced him to the alleged leader of the gang, Andre Blackman Bryan, in December 2016. The witness also testified that he knew that Mr. Bryan was the leader of the gang because he gave orders to murder people and that he was responsible for several communities in Spanish Town. 33 members of the gang are facing the courts. They are charged with being a part of a criminal organization, facilitating murder, conspiracy to murder, arson, and illegal possession of firearm and illegal possession of ammunition. An investigation has revealed that Nutrition Products Limited paid $143 million to companies and individuals connected to board members and management staff to provide a range of services. The matter has raised red flags for the Auditor General. According to an Auditor General's report tabled yesterday in the House of Representatives, the funds were used to cover services such as transportation, repairs, maintenance, and sanitation. Details from Prince Moore.
The Auditor General found instances in which Nutrition Products Limited breached the procurement law in the manner in which it engaged service providers. It was noted that board members acted contrary to ethical standards and fiduciary responsibility by failing to disclose connected party relationships. In one instance, Nutrition Products Limited paid a distribution company $69.6 million between November 2010 and January this year to provide transportation and haulage services. The audit revealed that the registered owner of 3Box used by the distribution company was an investment company, which the former board chairman is a director and a shareholder. The former chairman served 2 tenures on the entity's board, 2007 to 2013 and 2017 to December 2020. Payments to the distribution company stopped in 2013 when the first tenure ended and restarted in 2017. The Auditor General reported that the distribution company received delivery routes with the highest rates and was the only haulage contractor assigned to perform shuttle services. This resulted from the decision to centralize the distribution of meals to schools from the Kingston plant. The Auditor General said the risk of conflict of interest increased as the former chairman was involved in the decision to centralize the distribution process. Mrs. Monroe Ellis reported that the decision to centralize the distribution process turned out to be a costly option for Nutrition Products Limited, demonstrating that the former chairman ignored the principles of fiduciary responsibility and duty.
To a TVJ News special report now where Sandy Williams explores how the shortage of rental books could threaten learning in an already challenging school year.
It's been 2.5 weeks since the start of the new academic year, and some high schools are grappling with challenges stemming from a shortage of rental books. Under the rental book scheme, the government provides secondary schools with textbooks which are distributed to students at the start of each school year. The books are returned at the end of the third semester. But President of the Association of Principals and Vice Principals, Linvern Wright, says the books are in short supply, particularly at rural schools.
It is problematic that books are not available for some of our students because now in an online learning setting, you really need independent learning to take place where you give students work, refer to different parts of the text, and have students do this kind of work to practice and build their competence. Well, the impression I get is that it is not a few schools. I have spoken to members in our group, and those members that responded it's a wide cross section of schools. I have seen up to 30 responses from members to say that it's a severe problem that they're.
He says the problem is not new, explaining that over the years, schools have had to ask students to substitute textbooks with online activities. But with connectivity challenges still plaguing some students, the impact of the textbook shortage is even worse.
As I said before, independent learning is something you want to push now. You want to be able to have references for students that are not just about the teacher, and you want them to go ahead and do work in subjects that they need practice and to develop their competence in. It is serious. Certainly for those students who do not have connectivity, it becomes even more important that they have their books. But if they have the books and are not getting access to their teachers, that's even a double whammy for many of them. And if they don't have it and not getting access to their teachers, even worse.
Mr. Wright says several reports have been made to the Education Ministry about the issue. However, to date, nothing has been done.
We have murmured about it. We have said to the ministry this is happening. And there's an announcement that billions have been spent. But when you check the per capita amount and what really is happening per school, you realize that it's not adequate. It seems to me that funding is a thing, or if it is that we consider this to be a priority, we find the money to do it. I find that sometimes we just do too many things and not try to do a few well. I believe that if textbooks are important in the minds of the ministry officials and those who guide this process, we will have books.
When contacted, Director of Communications at the Education Ministry, Colin Steer, says the ministry is aware of the shortage in some schools. He explained it's due to increased enrollment in some schools, loss of books by students, and books returned in a state of disrepair. Mr. Steer says the ministry is advanced in completing the procurement for the textbooks, which are expected to be delivered to schools in need by the end of October 2021. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
Time now for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to Midday News, and thanks for staying with us. Things are looking up for several rural schools despite the continued challenges of online learning. A Canada-based foundation has been donating school supplies, including electronic devices, even as school administrators make the most out of virtual teaching. Krista Campbell reports.
A flow tower about 300 meters away from Woodlands Primary and Infant School in southern Manchester, but no internet at the school.
We were getting some kind of internet service through Universal Service Fund, but for the past year and a half, that has not happened.
And so it's been challenging getting students to access online learning materials. But Principal Earl Anderson says things could change soon.
So I want to thank for at least for calling, because they did call us and said that they would be willing to offer us some free internet service and landline service.
While he awaits that to become a reality, a container load of assistance from the Canada-based Uzazi Foundation, which has adopted the school.
This school, for instance, Woodlands Primary, we're using the containers to add as auxiliary buildings for the school. So we're in the process of building a building that is going to be about 50 feet by 100 feet.
Desk, chairs, books, sanitizers, furniture, whiteboards, bicycles, and so many other things.
Those items being shared with several other schools in remote areas of Westmoreland, St. Mary and Clarendon.
Books for the library. So even though we're not open for face-to-face, at least we are in preparation mode where when our students resume, there will be resources in place for them.
Janice Jalal is principal for Denby High School in Clarendon, where she says about 80% of students have been online so far this school year. She says the staff has tried to make the virtual platform as interactive as possible.
We had virtual sports day. They have movie nights with students and parents. They've had virtual cook-offs.
But there are still challenges.
The electricity goes out. There are internet connectivity issues for students and for teachers. And of course, there are device challenges, because sometimes you might think, oh, I have a perfectly well working device. But the constant use, sometimes the demands of the platform, you might find that there are going to be issues.
The Uzazi Foundation has again donated electronic devices to the schools and plans to continue helping, but
we went through an incredibly arduous challenge. Even though we had all the paperwork, they kept us for 3.5 hours.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
As online learning and work from home continues, the demand for better connectivity and faster internet speed is on the rise. General Manager at Flow, Stephen Price, says the company is targeting more communities in rural parishes.
I'd say 50% of these homes are outside of Kingston, St. Andrew and St. Catherine. So excellent. We're doing our part in touching every single parish right across the length and breadth of Jamaica.
Upgraded work is ongoing in some 175 communities across the island. But according to Mr. Price, it has not been smooth sailing.
So right now we have probably about 10,000 homes which can't connect because of the fact that these thieves and villains have been going out there terrorizing communities and taking internet. But the other key thing as well is that obviously, we run on power.
Yes.
So the fact is, in all our sites, we usually have generators as well as battery backup to also supply these communities. We're also on the plague, and it's not just us, it's the entire industry is on a scourge of vandalism.
To some COVID-related news now, the country is now seeing a decline in COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations. In the last 24 hours, 179 new cases of the virus were reported. The country's overall case count now stands at 80,959. The positivity rate is 27.6%. 700 people have been hospitalized with COVID-19. 43 of the patients are critically ill, while 97 are severely ill. There are 27,249 active cases on the island. Meanwhile, 3 more people have died from COVID-19. The death toll is 1,803. And it's now time for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
MBJ Airports Limited expects the long-awaited runway extension project at the Sangster International Airport in Montego Bay, St. James to start this year. The project cost about $70 million. MBJ marketing manager Sharon Hislop-Holt revealed that the procurement phase for a contractor has been completed and the preferred contractor will be announced within a few weeks. The work is slated to be completed by the end of 2022. Saw a dip in revenues of roughly $15 billion. A market report published by the Offices of the Utilities Regulations (OUR) for the quarter January to March this year showed that the sector lost $200 million in income. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic driving businesses and social activities online, there has been a 4.5% increase in the availability and use of broad internet service, both fixed and mobile, in the country over 1 year of the pandemic. At the same time, revenues of telecommunication firms fell by 3.5% over the 1 year period to March 2021.
And we go now to a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report.
In this evening's health report, we look at COVID-19 vaccines and the possible impact on the menstrual cycle.
What is also said is that these changes that the patients complain about tend to be short-lived. So some persons will say that the period tend to be lighter. Others say that it is heavy and prolonged. But within 1 to 2 months, for the vast majority of these patients, they see resolution of the problem.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. If you feel your menstrual cycle has been impacted post taking the COVID-19 vaccine, seek medical help. Gather as much factual information you have on the vaccine and menstrual cycle, and don't be afraid to ask your medical doctors questions about your concerns.
Now, for the top regional and international stories, here's O'Shane Masters.
The World Bank says drops in health spending has jeopardized recovery from the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic in the Caribbean and other developing countries. The World Bank says drops in health spending has jeopardized recovery from the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic in the Caribbean and other developing countries. According to a paper titled From Double Shock to Double Recovery, Widening Rifts, governments will have to make bold choices to avoid falls in government health spending. In a group of 126 countries, the World Bank said per capita government spending is projected to exceed pre-COVID levels by 2026. It said in 52 countries by that time, overall government spending will, however, remain below 2019 levels. The World Bank said a return to pre-COVID-19 growth rates in per capita government health spending in the poorest of these countries would require the share of spending assigned to health to almost double from 10% to 20%. A rare powerful earthquake has rocked Australia's second largest city. Buildings were damaged and power lines brought down in Melbourne, almost 200 kilometers from the epicenter. The 5.9 magnitude quake is one of the strongest on record in Australia. And government officials in Sudan say they have the country under their control after what they say was an attempted coup Tuesday morning. Now, a senior government official says at least 40 officers from the military were arrested while attempting to take over the state broadcaster, as well as a key military facility. And that's it for the top regional and international stories. I'm O'Shane Masters.
We head now to a quick break. When we return, we'll have your midday sports report. Renardo Brown is standing.
That may have been relevant to the investigation. Samuels will be given a time period of 14 days to respond to the charges. Meanwhile, the West Indies could tour Pakistan in December for a The Sunshine Girls will have a short turnaround between the Tri-Nation Series next month and a trip to the UK after confirming a 3-match series against England's Roses in November. The Sunshine Girls will be involved in their first home series since the start of the pandemic when they host Trinidad and Tobago and South Africa at the National Indoor Sports Centre from October 9 to 23. Now, the conference's team will also have eyes on a series in the UK from November 28 to December 5. The England series has been a long time in coming, as the Jamaicans were due to play the series in January but was prevented from travelling due to restrictions between countries. Jamaica and England will meet at the Copper Box Arena in London on November 28 before playing 2 games at the Motor Point Arena in Nottingham on December 4 and 5. The series is, however, subject to COVID-19 travel restrictions. And finally, at sports time, Tivoli Gardens and Veer United were locked at 0-0 in their second leg quarter-final round fixture in the Jamaica Premier League at the Captain Horsburgh Centre of Excellence at UWI Mona. The two teams failed to produce a goal in their first leg encounter on Saturday. At 2:30, Harbourview will look to turn around a 2-goal deficit when they meet Mount Pleasant Academy. The first leg of that encounter ended 3-1. And that's it for your midday sports. It's back to you, Anthony.
All right, thank you very much, Bernardo. And that's where we leave you for today. That's the Midday News. I'm Anthony Lugg. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.